Support for this season of Stereophonic comes from Universal Audio, pioneering audio recording for more than 60 years. Find out more at uaudio.com. And from Perlman Microphones, making tube microphones in the classic style. Find out more at perlmanmicrophones.com. Welcome to the digital airways of Stereophonic, an ongoing conversation series presenting the people, personalities, and perspectives of the modern music business. I'm Dan Kimpel. With our fourth season, we continue to introduce you to those in the spotlight and behind the scenes, and all of our Stereophonic subjects are right here with us in person. It is our objective to entertain and inform you as we reveal tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. A songwriter, an artist, a businessman, and a creative visionary. Across the span of mediums, Evan Bogart channels his exuberant imagination into songs, films, television, records, music publishing, and technology.
For me, I'm not a songwriter who wakes up in the morning like, oh my God, I have to write about this today. I can't write about anything else but this feeling inside of me. For me, I go into it like, how can I help you, right? How can I be of service today to the people in the room? How can I be of service to the producer, to the artist, or to the label, or whatever my job is for the day? I'm bringing my best ability to help you unlock something. And most likely, because I'm human and I'm an empath, I have felt what you are feeling. So I have this ability to tap into my own experience, to feel that feeling, and then relate, and then convert that into a song.
Music is the through line. And having written songs for a roster of artists, including Jennifer Lopez and Jason DeRulo, Evan's co-written Beyoncé smash, Halo, is a remarkable touchstone in an ever-evolving career. E-Kid Bogart, Evan Bogart, so glad to see you today.
Hi, it's so good to see you too.
You do so many things. I always like to say that the word multi-hyphenate was invented to encompass all of your endeavors.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm sure that's not true, but I appreciate it.
And every time I see you, you are in a different place in your career and a different place.
I know. It's like I know I'm at a different place in my career because we cross paths. So it's like you're like the marker in my timeline that says like, oh, here's the next part of your career starting. I love it.
I love it. And in addition to all the other things that we referenced in your intro, you are now the president of the LA chapter of the Recording Academy.
Yes.
And for our listeners who aren't familiar with that formal name, of course, there's the folks that bring us the Grammy Awards, but they do so many other things behind the scenes.
I mean, the Recording Academy is all about service, advocacy, and recognition. That's basically, to boil it down, to what the Recording Academy does. And obviously, most people are familiar with the recognition part of it, which again is the Grammy Awards, the Latin Grammy Awards, a few other awards that are given out to special merit awards, technical awards throughout the years, but also there's the service part of it, and then there's the advocacy part of it. And the service part of it is a lot to do with philanthropic work and a lot to do with education. So there's a lot of work that's done in schools, in colleges, and in high schools, and trying to bring education into the schools on a national level and on a local level, done by the different chapters. So I'm the president of the LA chapter, and there's 12 different chapters. Wow. So, and each chapter kind of functions as a hyper-focused group of industry professionals, both creative and on the business side, who are there to represent the people in that region or city with respect to the greater picture of the Recording Academy and the needs of those people. And then there's a national board of trustees that kind of creates the governance and all of the agendas for what the Recording Academy does outside of even just the Grammy Awards themselves. So in the service part of it, the education and also the giving back part of it, which is like Music Cares and the Grammy Museum Foundation, lots of different charitable works, the Musicians Assistance Program, which deals with a lot with addiction and getting people into rehab, but also Music Cares itself helps people, that are just down on their luck, people in the music industry who need some sort of support system. Help people find therapists. It's a lot of mental health work we've been doing a lot lately. So that's really great. And then obviously there's the advocacy arm, which is advocating for creators' rights, fighting for creators' rights, both on a national level and on a local level.
I understand there was some politicking involved when you ran for president. Maybe some confetti flew up in the air?
Oh, actually, that's funny. Actually, that was when I ran for vice president.
Okay.
Yeah. So I joined the Recording Academy, as soon as I had enough credits to join the Recording Academy, because I grew up filling out my mom's ballots, and she would take me to all the Grammy Awards. Every year we would go. I even went to ones in New York. I know we just did one recently in New York, but back in the day, they would alternate a lot more. I have a picture of me with Flavor Flav at the Grammy. It was a big deal in my household growing up. And then as soon as I had enough credits, I joined the Recording Academy so that I could vote for myself, and then I could vote for my friends, and then I could brag to other people that I could vote for the Grammys. But once I was doing that, I started learning more about, a little bit more about what the Recording Academy did, but still not enough, right? And a friend of mine was like, you should run for the board of the Grammys. They really want you to run for a board seat. And I ran in, I think, 2011, and I lost. I actually ran against Claudia Brandt, who I serve with now. I ran for songwriter seat and I lost, but I deservedly so. And then a year later, there was a special election to replace somebody who had to leave the board, and they ran me again, and I got on in 2012. Once in there, I started learning about all the different things. Again, when I ran, it was kind of how do I get inside, and how do I know what's going on with the voting? Not really understand. I just wanted to know more about the Grammys, right? But I fell in love with all the other parts. Obviously I love the recognition part of it, but I fell in love with the service part, and I fell in love with the advocacy part, big time. And immediately just became immersed in anything I could do, whether it was Grammy Camp and Grammy in the schools, mentoring people within the next program. Anything I could do. Eventually I became the chair of the Professional Development Committee, which oversees the next program, and creating mentorship opportunities, one-on-one and panel opportunities for people who are part of that program and who are members of the Grammy Recording Academy. And then from there, I was encouraged to run for an officer seat, and I ran for vice president, which leads us up to the Confetti Story. And one of the guys who worked at the Recording Academy, we joked around. I said, hey, should I throw confetti at the end of my speech? He's like, you should. And I was like, listen, man, if you give me the confetti, I'll throw the confetti. Just as a joke. And it was a month earlier. And when I showed up, he had a box of confetti sticks. And I was like, well, I said I was going to do it, so I guess I'll do it. So I put them inside in the inner lining of my jacket, and at the end of my speech, I just flung them out, and confetti flew everywhere in the boardroom, which I kind of felt bad about, because the guy who I was running against had to go after me. And as I left the room and he was walking in the room, the thought occurred to me oh man, I feel so shitty, because he's going to walk into this room having no idea what my speech was like, and he's just going to see confetti everywhere, which must be really intimidating, right? Because you're like, what just happened in this room, right? And I got I was told in the future yeah. Just keep it to the speech. So when I ran for president, it was a lot more serious, and I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't serious when I ran for vice president. I had to run for a second term as vice president, and there was no confetti when I ran for a second term either. But I always tease them. I'm like, maybe I should have breakaway pants or something like that, I all of a sudden I rip off my shirt and I'm wearing a Recording Academy basketball jersey or something. But yeah, so I ran for vice president. I was vice president for 2 years. Then I went back to being governor for 2 years, and then I ran, this year for president.
Terrific.
Yeah, well, it's important. For me, there's a lot of things that I've been working really hard to affect on a chapter level, and really try to get a lot of the next generation involved and create these mentorship opportunities. And obviously I've been really involved with the advocacy on behalf of songwriters, and working towards, making the Recording Academy a place that songwriters feel like is a destination that nurtures them and supports them, which I think there's been over the years, there's been kind of a disconnection. I think that for whatever reason, songwriters haven't been as involved in the process. Yeah. And I know that some people have been well, it's recorded arts and sciences. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you recording? You know what I mean? I think we're all equal here, right? We all kind of need each other. There's a synergy to how records are made, right? There's a song, there's the recording, there's the production, there's the singing, there's a performance of it, there's the musicianship. We all kind of have to work together. So it's kind of been important for me. Obviously I represent the entire chapter and all music creators, and I've always been about fighting for all music creators. But as a songwriter myself, I've also wanted to make sure that songwriters were well represented within the Recording Academy.
Historically, songwriters have succeeded when they take control of destiny, and
I like that.
Thank you.
It's a good quote. I'm going to emblazon that on a sword or something.
I have that inside of your tattoo.
Tattoo that on my shoulder.
There you go. But I was thinking about it on the way over here today, Evan, and your multi-hyphenation thing, that you are a businessman as well, that you are very involved in the business elements of our business. And this is nothing new. I mean, Johnny Mercer, big songwriter, founded Capitol Records, historically Lieber and Stoller, very much involved in record labels and publishing empires. Jeff Berry, same thing. So that history it kind of throws through. I mean,
A&M.
And there you go.
Jimmy Ivey.
There we go. Exactly.
And the list goes on.
It does. There are a lot of songwriters who have gotten involved in the business and the control. So the idea that you sit in a room by yourself and create. There's a whole lot of other things that are involved.
Yeah, for sure.
In the business,
a lot of collaboration.
Yeah,
on both sides.
One of the things I learned early on about you was that if I was to follow you on Twitter, I would learn things and I would know about things before they happen.
I've kind of moved on to the Instagram. So
thing too.
But like before it was,
Yeah, and I have, because I followed you on Twitter, I was given information that greatly helped my career. I wanted to thank you for that.
Amazing.
And one of the things was, at one point you talked about an artist from the Bay Area. He was doing a project called Wallpaper.
Yeah.
You introduced me to him at a BMI dinner. I shocked him by knowing who he was and being able to sing his song.
Oh, that's amazing.
Ever so badly, which he remembers. He remembers that moment too.
Great.
That young man is now the producer that we know as Ricky Reed.
Yeah.
He's got a very hot project right now who you've written songs for.
Yeah,
an artist named Lizzo.
Lizzo, yeah.
You saw that coming. Lizzo?
Yeah. I think, it's so interesting. The person who introduced Ricky to Lizzo was they had the same agent, this guy named Matt Morgan, who was at CA, and they went to William Morris, right? But I don't know if anybody saw it coming per se.
Yeah.
Especially the way that it happened. I think it's so interesting. Like when I first saw Lizzo perform, I saw Lizzo perform back in 2015 at Terminal 5. I was with Larry Wade, and we went to go see her open for Sleater Kinney. Which was also a kind of interesting pairing. But Lizzo had been doing a lot of a very diverse touring support round, and so many different crowds of people really loved her.
Yeah.
So she was able to support, an EDM group or an indie pop group or a rock group, alt rock, rap, whatever. She could do all of that, which I thought was so fascinating. But when I saw her perform, I was like, oh man, this is so up Ricky's, this is like Wallpaper. It was kind of an extension of that for me. So I definitely thought it was a perfect pairing. When I heard the first song they did was a song called Worship, I was like, whoa, this is going to be really special. So, which is still a song that she performs, and it's still a crowd favorite. And that was the first song they ever did together. But, the whole Truth Hurts thing blowing up caught everybody by surprise. So I don't think everybody believed it was being set up the right way. And I think without the years of setup, releases, and her speaking her mind and being as great as she is on social media and being as proud of who she is, an authentic person, and the way that she connects with people, and she'd build fans one at a time and have such a great live show and have such a consistent body of music, and all of the things she was doing and that Ricky was doing and that Nice Life was doing leading up to this moment, and even going to radio with Juice, which was starting to get some traction when the Truth Hurts license happened and when the sync happened on Netflix. I think all was in service of creating a platform for that. When it does happen, there's some sort of foundation for it. I think it was just, it's kind of like that. What it is opportunity and preparedness meet, whatever. I forget what that old saying is, but that was a perfect example of that, right? Because when the moment that song was Shazamming #1, the day after that Netflix show aired, and then it kept Shazamming and then streaming and then got put into a bunch of playlists and kept streaming and streaming and streaming and kept building and building. I think it was if all of that other groundwork hadn't been laid for the years before, that opportunity might have come and gone.
That's a great point, Evan. Sometimes when we watch the competition shows, like American Idol or The Voice, that's kind of what's missing. You've got an artist that's got this just tremendous visibility at this point, but there's no foundation under it.
Right.
So they come and go so quickly.
I think that's people are so the industry, look at the industry's changed. They've taken a song that's 2 years old and now it's become a hit, right? And now her next single, which is a hit, Good as Hell, is 3 years old, right? And I think that has to do with building a solid foundation. It's understanding who an artist is and shining a spotlight on those things that people connect with on an emotional level, on a visceral level, and sticking to that. And no matter how long it takes, you just you stay the course, and you continue to build on that, and you continue to pivot within that structure. You create those tent poles of who this artist is, what does this artist stand for, what is the kind of music this artist puts out, and those are the fans we want, because we want fans who are fans of the artist, of the person, of not of a song here or there. You want someone who's coming along for the journey and the ride. And so I think that's what they did so well with that, and I think that's what's working, and that gives you the opportunity to go back into your catalog and continuously put out new music, because you have a fan base that's going to support it already, and now you have a platform of which to share it with new people who didn't know it existed before. So that's why I think Truth Hurts, which everybody when it came out was so excited about back in 2017, but Lizzo didn't have a platform and didn't have an avenue to make that a hit song. And Good as Hell, which was a single off the Barbershop 3 soundtrack a year earlier, also didn't have the legs to actually go to radio with it. It was a brand new artist. It was a great look, but it was a brand new artist. And now she has that. I think if you look at a lot of the artists who are becoming artists of this new generation that may be career artists, and I hate to overuse Lizzo or Billie as examples. Yeah. You look at their 3+ year journey of creating a foundation, of sticking to their guns, of really just staying the course and being authentic and letting people come to them if they like it.
Bingo.
And just trying to share it everywhere and say, this is who it is, this is what it is, like it or not like it, and people loved it, But I don't think they're alone on that. I think Lana has done that beautifully since day one. I was actually talking about it with a friend yesterday. I said, the access to music production that we have now and the access to distribution, I don't know if Lana Del Rey happens the same way, because as she was I think Lizzie Grant or something beforehand, right? Most people don't know that, and finding access to that, it doesn't exist. And nowadays, it's so much harder to you put out a record and then you're like, oh, that's not right. Let me try this. Oh, that's not right. Let me try this. So first of all, you have the ability to just try new things, which is actually not the right thing to do. And people and then you have the access to distribute it to see if people are reacting to it, which is just seeing if it sticks, right? And that's also not necessarily the right approach either, right? So the combination of that creates a bunch of artists who are chasing reactions as opposed to figuring out who they are and creating that artistry and letting people buy into that artistry. People are trying to write to their fans as opposed to bringing their fans to them. But Lana, back then had the ability, if Blue Jeans came out and didn't go gangbusters, would she have been maybe I should be Lizzie again? Right? Who knows, right?
True.
It may not have. Because it was mysterious and because the access wasn't available, she was able to just stick to being Lana and develop this very long career that's not really based on radio, right? It's
not at all.
It's really based on creating a destination for fans to come to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, even though Billie's had radio success and Lizzo's had radio success, I think more than either of them, both, I don't think any of their music is traditional radio hits.
No.
So I think it's more about the destination for fans to come to, and the radio hits are in response to that.
Nice.
Sorry to overanalyze that.
No, it's great. It's great. The three artists that you referenced you referenced Lana Del Rey, Billie Eilish, Lizzo, also have huge atmospherics. There's kind of an atmospheric culture around those artists as well, which is so interesting.
Well, I think that's the time we live in right now.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for something to connect to.
Yeah.
And find what their culture is.
Yeah.
And I think that they all speak to whatever their culture is, and people, connect with it or they don't. Yeah. I know people who I'm close with who are I don't get Lizzo. I don't like Lizzo. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Billie, same thing.
I've had that.
People, not for everyone.
Yeah, it's true.
They're both for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Obviously. But not for everyone, right? It's not like they're everyone loves.
No.
I don't know. There's got to be an artist that everyone loves, right?
Yeah.
Who's everyone loves?
Who's
Justin
everyone?
Timberlake?
Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone who doesn't like Bruno Mars.
I think there is, but I've never met them. All right, good. Here's something that I've never told you this. A few years back, there was a songwriter that you referenced, and because I interview songwriters, I was starting to pay attention to a writer that you had referenced in Twitter. And at that point, she was not an artist, and so I reached out to her through management, who I knew. She had never done an interview. I went and interviewed her. She was 19 years old at the time. She told me she didn't want to be an artist because she wanted to be able to wear her bedroom slippers to sessions.
Right.
And she was very unfiltered in the interview.
Right.
Julia Michaels.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like Julia to me, right?
It was Julia.
Yeah.
Before she was the artist Julie, which is so interesting.
Yeah. Julia, I mean, Lindy Robbins?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so Lindy was the first person to have introduced any of us to Julia. I mean, Lindy took Julia around everywhere. And Julia was, for a long time, sang a lot of our demos. And that's how I first met her. I was like, oh my God, this girl's voice is incredible. And I hadn't heard any of the songs she'd written other than the stuff she had written with Lindy. And Lindy had kind of pushed her into like believing in herself for that. And I knew her sister too, Jaden, who was also trying to make it as an artist as well and as a writer. Julia's, she's a one of a kind, it's so interesting because there was definitely a point in time where she was demoing enough songs for me and E-Man that we were like, you should just stay on the songs. And she was like, no, I don't want to be an artist. I don't want to be an artist. I like stage fright or whatever. There was like a TV show we were developing, and she had done the demos for that as well, the songs. And I was like, you should be in this show. She was like, no. So it's actually really cool to see her doing what she's doing, and to have overcome that adversity and face her fears and her anxiety. And I'm sure it's, from all too many people, unfortunately, it's a daily battle, but
it is.
But I'm proud of her.
It's that way for artists. I mean, Billie as well has been very open about things that she's had to face.
So interesting. I wonder how much of social media plays into that, because I feel like people are I just feel like people are like really, people care too much what other people think.
They do.
And I think after a while it just fucks with your head.
Yeah. You as a writer, I was listening to a playlist. Cobalt has a playlist on you, which is pretty cool.
That's tight.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. And the overall effect of your catalog is very upbeat. I
like to have fun.
You do, and it comes through in the songwriting. You know what I mean? I mean, you have written ballads, of course.
For sure. And I've written some sad ballads too. I always think I'm like, man, Leona Lewis, Happy. That song is so sad, and it's called Happy.
But it's great to get to listen to your body of work. And one thing that occurs to me, and you and I have spoken about before, and I spoke to Sam Hollander about it recently, because he came up doing in the hip hop world, as did you, is a facility for being able to create very quickly. Well,
lyrically, to actually be on your toes lyrically and to think really quickly.
Yeah,
I'm pretty quick with lyrics, as Sam is. Not to mean that I wouldn't go back and refine and really trying to noodle something out, but like if I get what the song is about, if I get what we're trying to achieve, I get. And I'm also like very storytelling. I just like. I like trying to paint a picture, So, and I think that all comes from my love for hip hop. I mean, one of the first jobs I had, even when I was interning at Interscope for Tom Wally back in the early to mid '90s, and then when I first got promoted from the mailroom in '96 to work on the first posthumous Tupac album, Are You Still Down? Like my first job was going and cataloging all of the unreleased Tupac songs, pulling up all the reels with Chuck Reed in the Interscope vault, and then transcribing every lyric to every Tupac song, because they wanted to know if there was stuff in there that talked about this is an Interscope that's like not too many years removed from the body count situation, right? Yeah. And that whole thing with Warner, with WIA, right? Mm-hmm. So they were very concerned about that. But I think that really helped me, and even when I was in like elementary school, whether it was rap or whether it was 80s pop, 90s pop, grunge, whatever, I would transcribe lyrics because I wanted to, when I went to like birthday parties, I wanted to be the kid who knew all the lyrics when the songs would come on. It made me look cool to the girls, I would be like, yeah, I know all the Beastie Boys songs, or like I know all the Nirvana songs, or like I know what Eddie Vedder's actually saying in the song or something, and then that led into me spending basically 6 months of my life listening to Tupac songs and transcribing lyrics. Wow. I mean, that was like literally a half a year of my life doing that. So, my love for hip hop and a lot of the early work that I did in the industry, I think really sharpened my lyrical skill.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good way of putting that.
For our listeners who don't know, and you referenced your mom Joyce, and your father is a legendary a record company executive, Neil Bogart, who passed when you were very young, 4 years old. Yeah.
2 years after John Lennon.
Who also interestingly started as an artist as well.
Yeah, he was an artist and signed to Portrait Records.
Yes.
Had like a song that went like number 62 or 46 or something. I don't remember what number, but it's not that good.
Bobby.
Bobby. No offense. Like I've always heard the story that my grandma called him a has-been that never was. It's so interesting too when you come up in the music industry and your father is such a giant shadow. It's like you kind of like try to figure out like where does he end and where do you start. And I think that the difference is in songwriting, in music creation. Like was a great promo guy, a great marketing guy, had a great ear, a great eye for talent, knew how to develop somebody visually as well as in the studio. But as far as like writing songs, I got that on him. Take that, Dad.
You told me that coming up, it wasn't an advantage for you.
No, it was actually a disadvantage.
That's what you said because people assumed it was an advantage.
And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it wasn't like he was alive, and I feel like there were people who were so quick to share their stories of my dad, but like weren't necessarily like, let me give you a hand up. It wasn't that, but I think that people thought because of who my dad was that I was getting some sort of like preferential treatment. And in fact, the opposite. I ended up going to Interscope because that was the one label that was so new that I didn't have any family connections. The irony of that also being that like I was sitting in Jimmy's assistant's office, this guy Evan Strauss at the time, and he was like interviewing me potentially the interview came through Ted Field's office. It didn't even come through Jimmy's office, like nothing to do with my dad or my mom. And Evan Strauss excused himself for a second and left the room, and Steve Berman walked in. And Steve was like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Evan." He's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "Evan Bogart." And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Interviewing for an internship." And he said, and he paused, and he looked at me, and he was like, "Is your dad Neil Bogart?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're hired." And I started interning for Steve. So the irony was like, I did get the internship because of it, but that wasn't the intent ever, right? And the whole time, of course, I'm freaking out because I'm like, this is the guy from the Dre Day video, right? Like as like this hip hop head, I'm like, oh my god, it's the guy, it's the guy who played Jerry Heller in the Dre Day video. But yeah, I started interning for Steve and then for Tom Wally.
One of your many gifts is finding things that don't appear to be commercial, and you understanding in some ways that they are commercial.
Sure.
White rappers?
Yeah, white rappers.
White rappers.
Yeah. White rappers, the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
I being a white rapper myself, you know. Yeah, I was the kid, the intern, the whatever the story goes, who brought the demo tape, from Eminem into Interscope. And I feel really honored and grateful to be a part of that story. And even if in like the smallest way or whatever way possible, I'm really fond of them. And I love the people that were involved. And I look back and it just being like my earliest education of the music industry, for better or for worse. There were things that I learned to do better from that. And there were things that I learned never to do worse. No, I'm just kidding. There were things about that have shaped me to this day, and continue to inspire me. And watching people like, Paul Rosenberg and his ascent and, having met him when he was like, an up and coming lawyer working for Cutler and Sotomayor, and he was M's lawyer, and like then watching him become M's manager. And then, now obviously having built this empire with M and now being the head of Def Jam and DJ Moore Milley, Jimmy's nephew, who I met, when I first started at Interscope. We became instant friends and he A&R'd that record and getting to make that record with him, and then having this career-long friendship with him, lifelong friendship with him, and there was just the Bass Brothers and what they did for me early on and really championed me, and it was just a really special time, and I think I've had this ability to kind of, I don't know if I just end up in the right place at the right time or have the right music come across, but I think everybody has those opportunities. It's just really about being able to identify them and to kind of like gut check and go after them. And I believed in M so much. I mean, like I would I mean, they probably wanted to throw me out a window at Wilshire and Westwood at the old Interscope offices, because that's all I would talk about for like the entire time we were making that Tupac record, was this, white kid from Detroit that I thought was the greatest rapper of all time, coming from somebody who really worshipped Biggie and who worshipped Pac and who worshipped some of the greatest Nas and some of the greatest rappers of all time. For me, like, I really thought I had met the best ever. And I wanted everybody to know that, and it took a minute for people for it to kind of happen over there, and for almost by accident to land in Dre's lap. The story of him like picking up the tape at Jimmy's house and saying, "Who is this?" That's absolutely true. It was all happenstance.
What did you hear? What was it you were hearing? Just authenticity, or?
I walked in. There was a club on Century Boulevard in Inglewood called the Proud Bird, and Rap Sheet was having their Rap Olympics, their annual Rap Olympics, and a DJ friend of mine, this guy Cassidy Hoban, had called me when I was working at Sound Castle, which is now Pulse in Silver Lake, and was like, "You got to come over here. You got to see this white kid. He's just killing people. Like, he's just this. You're gonna die." He's like, "You got to get over here." So I kind of ditched from the studio and got in trouble, and went over there, and like I walked in, and just his confidence, the way he was saying things was so clever. It was I had never heard anything like it, and then I went up to him afterwards, and he was pacing back and forth backstage. He had lost. He came in second place. And I asked him for his demo, and he brought me over to introduce me to his manager at the time, this guy Mark Kemp, who ran an indie label in Detroit for many years called Federation Records. And he gave me the Slim Shady EP sampler, which was like 4 or 6 songs, some of which would end up on the Slim Shady LP album, some of which didn't. He had a song called Low Down and Dirty, which didn't end up on the album, and a few other things. But for the most part, those, it was just the two of us and Just Don't Give a Fuck. And If I Had, those songs would all end up on there. And me and my friends got in the car afterwards and just popped it on, and our jaws were on the ground. I mean, we had never heard anybody make these pop culture references and the internal rhyme schemes and structures. And then as Paul or as the Bash Brothers would send me more material, like his previous album, The Infinite Record, and some of that other stuff, during the process of me trying to get people to listen to Interscope, I just fell in love with it. I mean, I had never heard someone say the things he was saying and the way he was saying them. And everybody kept telling me I was out of my mind.
Which may well be.
Yeah, no, a good way, right? They're just, I mean, the excuses from like, a white rap isn't going to make it, or there was an A&R guy who told me he preferred this other white rapper, Cage, that he was looking at signing, and, people were just not into it. I tried to get people to meet with them, and they were like, we're not going to take pity meetings on your behalf. And people were like really anti-Eminem.
It's so interesting.
All of those people, I'm sure, are probably like, no, I always believed in it. I won't name names, but like whether it was M or whether it was, being really early on One Republic or Maroon 5.
Yes.
Or, obviously Ricky and ZZ and I'm really blessed to have met a lot of really talented people and have been able to play some sort of role in helping them achieve their dreams. And I think that's important to me. And that's like the basis of my business now, is like, for me, I'm a creative who wants to empower other creatives.
Yeah. I see ZZ Ward is launching a tour. We have a tour, a ZZ Ward tour.
Yeah, a tour, and I think she announced today she has a song coming out on Friday.
Wow.
So yeah, new song on Friday, and then new music all next year. A new album next year, a bunch of tours. She got a whole new team in place now. Like, it's very exciting for her.
Teaching at Musicians Institute, I referenced at one point that I knew her, and I had a student that was just like, you've been in a room with her? It was like, I said, yeah, the first time I met her, I actually spilled a bunch of coffee on myself, and she ended up like cleaning me up.
That's amazing.
It was an amazing story.
Well, people always say to me, they're like, so you sign writers and artists? I was like, yeah, the first two people I signed for my own company was basically Ricky Reed and ZZ Ward. And I was like, and Ricky's, now 2-time Grammy nominated producer of the year, and ZZ's my wife. So that worked out well for on both accounts,
I love that.
And she's also has her own. Obviously, I'm joking. She has a very successful career on her own as well. But
She does.
but for me at least, that worked out too.
That's terrific. She's got such a great vibe, and she's just so authentic. I mean, the whole energy
Incredible.
is just
She's
authentic.
she's such an incredible songwriter, and it's so interesting because it's like I go to work every day when I go into a songwriting session. My job is to help a songwriter unlock what they're trying to say, right? And so for me, I'm not one of those songwriters who wakes up, and I have a lot of friends who are like this, to each their own, right? For me, I'm not a songwriter who wakes up in the morning like, oh my God, I have to write about this today. I can't write about anything else but this feeling inside of me. For me, I go into it like, how can I help you, right? How can I be of service today to the people in the room? How can I be of service to the producer, to the artist, or to the label, or whatever my job is for the day? I'm bringing my best ability to help you unlock something. And most likely, because I'm human and I'm an empath, I have felt what you are feeling. So I have this ability to tap into my own experience, to feel that feeling, and then relate, and then convert that into a song, right? But Z writes a lot of her stuff on her own. Yeah. And so I see her for weeks and weeks toiling over the same song, playing the same piano part, singing the same melody, rewriting the lyric 100 times. And it's just like the tortured artist thing, right? Like that I'm not tortured at all. You talked about a lot of my songs are fun, right?
Yeah.
I'm not tortured. But I go to a session, even if I'm writing a sad song, I'm having fun. Like to me, I don't want to do a session where I'm like being tortured. That's just who I am as a creative. That's not saying that my way is right or wrong or good or bad. It's just what I am. I want to enjoy myself in the room. Even if I'm writing a song that's like heartbreaking, I'm enjoying the process. Some people are tortured by the process, but that's also their process. And that's how they get great songs. That's just not me. If I'm not having fun, I'm leaving.
In the room
Bye.
thing,
Go to the movies.
Room thing is great. Evan, in the decades that I have been interviewing songwriters, the only person that I ever interviewed who took me into a songwriting session was you.
Okay.
It was a session you were doing with DQ Quinones and Erica Nuri.
Yeah, the writing camp.
And you invited me to go into the room at Chalice.
Yeah.
And
that was probably cool, right?
Well, yeah. But it was hard for me to not feel like I was a writer then. But what about?
Yeah, but nowadays you probably would have claimed a piece. No,
I walked by the room.
Nowadays it's like, what do they say? Say a word, get a third, right?
I've heard. But I remember it was just what you talked about. You set up a loop, and the loop just kind of looped, and within really 20 minutes, you basically had a chorus going on.
Well, so interesting. Like back then, we were writing to track a lot.
Yes.
We didn't have a producer in the writing camp,
right.
So a lot of what we had to do was either find producers who would start from scratch, like we would work with Rodney a lot. Yeah. He would start from scratch, or people would send us tracks, and we'd find the ones we connect with, and that's what we write to.
Yeah.
And that was also really fun. I learned a lot about songwriting from DQ and from Erica. I mean, we obviously the writing camp doesn't really exist anymore, but they're still family, and
sure.
we'll always be friends. But I think the collaboration process is so important, and I think everything I learned about collaboration. I learned from the writing camp.
Yeah,
of respecting and managing personalities, of knowing how to wear different hats in the room, of knowing how to be of service and listen, shut the fuck up and stop thinking you know it all, of knowing what you're great at on any given day. You could be better than the rest of the room at one thing and deficient in another thing, and knowing how to identify that quickly and get on the same page with everybody, and writing with the same group of people every day for years. You really get an insight that's special. I always tell people chemistry is everything. It doesn't matter if the person you're writing with has huge credits or not. If you have chemistry with them, you guys will get the huge credits together. That's how that works, right? If you connect with someone and you guys write amazing, who cares what your credits are? The fact that you guys write amazing together is going to give you one up on everyone else. And I feel like people always try to recreate chemistry, right? If me and you had written a hit song for someone, and then every record label comes to us and I need Evan and Dan to do something for me. I'm like, there's no guarantee Evan and Dan will ever write another hit song together.
True.
Right?
True.
It was that chemistry in that moment in time. And so people are always trying to recreate chemistry when sometimes it doesn't exist. I think it's more important that you find a community that you create well with and stick to it and build with them. And you know what? Sometimes the chemistry runs out and you meet new people and you build new chemistry. Yeah. And you keep it moving. And that's what it is. It's not personal.
There's a monumental song in your catalog that we do have to reference, and that song is called Halo.
Sure.
That you wrote with Ryan Tedder and Beyoncé and was recorded by Beyoncé, and it's got a whole life of its own. It's like a living organism, that song.
Yeah.
In fact, it's so
It really is.
beautiful.
It's what, I think that in your career to be a part of something that's like, I guess, a timeless record.
Yeah.
It's kind of all that you ever really want. Like, I think I always say, like, people are always like, what's your favorite song that you've ever written? And I'm like, I think it's cheesy if I say Halo, but here's why it's Halo.
Yeah.
And it's not for financial gain. In fact, it's not the song that got the most radio play of any song I've ever written. It's not the highest charting song I've ever written. But it's the song that has affected people the most. It's the song that has become the fabric of other people's lives. And people have gotten married to that song. People have listened to it when they broke up. Beyoncé herself has used that song in the wake of Michael Jackson passing away, or in the wake of the earthquake in Haiti. Her and Chris Martin did a version of that song for the benefit. It's been such a light in people's lives, and it's such an important part of people's lives that it's kind of like when you can write a song that touches people and is also commercially successful. Right? Like that, isn't that like the best combination, right? Like it's like feed the belly, feed the soul at the same time kind of thing. So I think I'd be lying if I didn't say, when people ask me like, what's your favorite song? I say Halo because of that, because of the fabric of people's lives that it's become, and how I feel like way past when I'm not here anymore, that'll be the one song, at least up until today. Hopefully there's others, but that'll be the one song that I would bet the most on, that people will still be listening to.
Yeah. Are you going to Nashville today? Did I hear that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, good.
Do I have to go to Nashville today? Should I go to Nashville today?
Give it an hour. We'll see.
Yeah. Is there something in Nashville that I'm supposed to go do today?
I don't know. Do you go to Nashville?
I do go to Nashville a lot.
Yeah.
I actually was in Nashville 3 times in the last 2 months. So
see, that's what I was feeling.
I could have been going to Nashville today. I'm going to Hawaii on Sunday.
Even better.
Is that the same thing?
Well, no. What are you doing in Nashville?
Last time I was in Nashville, ZZ was shooting. She recently shot many music videos for her album, and her whole new team, from management to business management to agent, are in Nashville. So as executive producer of her project, went down there and then also I've been working on a few projects down there as well. So I have a single right now with an artist named Morgan Evans. And I was working with Anderson East, who I really love a lot as well. So I was kind of like doing this dual trip of like trying to schedule with artists I really want to work with while I'm down there doing my job as executive producer and husband. So that's brought me to Nashville a lot the second half of this year. But I'm usually in Nashville like 6 to 8 times a year. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I honestly, like, I'm not moving there now, but
Yeah, you think?
I could see myself having like a dual place one day or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years from now I'll live there or something. But I don't know. I love it there. And I love the people, and I have friends down there, and I love everything about it. I don't write a ton of country, but when I do, I write with a lot of great people. I have like a good network of people down there that I love writing with, and Chris DiStefano or Jamie Moore, Topher Brown, and Jesse Frazier. Just a lot of people that I really love down there. So.
Let's talk about a difference between Nashville and L.A. Nashville's a song town. L.A.'s a project town.
Yeah.
More songs and,
LA's becoming more of a song town.
True.
There's a lot of quote unquote song finders out there. You wouldn't know they're song finders because they still call them A&Rs.
Yes.
But
I believe
you know who you are.
In the past you've referenced them as song finders and babysitters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. But now they're song sitters. I think
interesting.
I think it's so interesting. I think there's like a whole group of younger up and coming A&R kids who are really great at finding records for their bosses. It's become a song town.
Okay.
It's interesting though. It hasn't really translated to like publisher in the same way that like publishers are like song pluggers like in Nashville. It's still really the managers and the artists themselves and the writers themselves who are the best at song plugging in pop. But pop in many ways, LA in many ways, is become pop Nashville. You know, there's so many. You want to write pop music, you come to LA, and you get, you know, half the times you get into an Uber now. Sometimes it's somebody who's giving you their demo. It's very much like Nashville. You know, there's a lot of comparisons to be made there. So, I don't know. I think LA is becoming more of a song town. I mean, because I think also I think in pop music projects, people are losing sight of projects themselves. It's become more song based. The releases, right?
Is and the singles world.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, less about, I mean, I guess for every Lizzo and Billy, there's 100 people doing it the opposite way.
Yeah.
Not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying you're wrong.
Yeah, I've got. With the company, with Boardwalk, you're into a lot of different kinds of things. The television shows, you've executive produced a couple of television shows, majors and minors.
Yeah, platinum hit. There's been a lot of the first songwriting competition show. No, I'll shout out to the current ones.
Yes.
But we had the first one back on Bravo, platinum hit, and that just was me being a fan of songwriting and me being a fan of Top Chef. And me being a fan of Bravo's reality shows, and my brother and I, we had put together this thing with DQ and Erica, and this kind of 15-minute sampler, and we walked into Bravo and played it, and pretty much sold it in the room, and went and made that show. I still love that show.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we could bring it back.
Yeah.
So much drama.
DQ was really good on that show. He was very good on camera.
Yeah, on Majors and Minors.
Yeah, it's a Majors and Minors.
He was a judge on Majors and Minors.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good.
He was so good on that.
Which I wouldn't have necessarily thought that.
No, he was great. DQ, you know what? DQ's so good. DQ always said from the beginning, from day one, DQ said, my goal is one day to open a school.
Yeah.
He wanted to open a music school. That literally was his dream, right? And so for him to be on that show as a mentor, for him to be a vocal coach on America's Got Talent now and vocal produce so many records, it's not a surprise to me. This is what he always wanted to do, right? He's always been very transparent about it. As a teacher, as a mentor, that's what he does in his everyday life. He primarily mentors and teaches people the right ways to sing records. Wow. That's what he does. Yeah. And he's so good at it, but he was great on that show. Honestly, I really love doing those TV shows. I hope to do more TV things. I'm developing a couple animated series right now. You know me, I don't, yeah. I'm developing a couple animated series. I'm early on a musical movie and a proper musical, early in development on two of those as well. So there's always for me, there's always the extension. Everything starts with the music, obviously. Both animated series are music series. And there's a few other music related things outside of just traditional writing and producing that I'm doing. Obviously signing writers and producers. I started a new company this year, a new publishing company this year that I've been signing people with, and really focused on growing that. And yeah, I don't know.
You're in the podcast world as well. Right to the source.
And I'm in the podcast. How can I forget I'm in the podcast world? I'm on a podcast. Yeah. I have a podcast. Me and Sarah Hudson co-host a podcast called Right to the Source.
We've listened.
Which is very much kind of an extension. Sarah and I threw a writing camp, almost 2 years ago now. I think it was 2 years ago this week in Palm Springs. And we invited just all of our friends, and there was no real agenda other than we wanted to get together some of our best friends at the end of the year to write songs, just to have fun and no pressure. And the conversation we would have when we weren't writing was about life, about, we would ask each other questions about how do you overcome anxiety, or what are things that are important to you, or what do you love most about songwriting? And everybody would go around, or even random questions if you had to pick somewhere in the world to live other than here, where would it be and why? And everybody would go around and we talk, and we kind of really bonded. And Sarah and I were like, man, so many people come up to us, Sarah being so spiritual and so knowledgeable about the entire world of wellness and mental health and just enriched in understanding a lot of the different ways that people go about connecting to something greater. Myself, coming up on 15 years of sobriety, also I have my own spiritual connection and my own way that I practice the principles of AA and everything that I do. And so I get a lot of phone calls from people who are looking for help with addiction or who are going through some tough times, and I counsel them, or I introduce them to people. And we thought, like, wow, we should start like a self-help group, kind of like we were doing with our group talks at this camp. And for a minute, we were trying to figure out how to do that, and it just became like, but everybody has an opinion of how it should be run, and it might be kind of a pain in the butt. So we kind of landed on, like, what if we did a podcast where we talked about, like, people's creative processes and their spiritual journeys, and in the process, we kind of, like, pushed them to talk about ways that they could advise other creatives to quiet voices in their head or connect when they want to be creative, or inspire people, empower people to keep pushing through adversity. And we landed on Right to the Source, which is, as we say, a conversation with people about their creative process and their spiritual journey.
One of the things you told me was that if you're working and grinding all the time as a songwriter, you don't have anything to talk about. You have to have a life.
Yeah, work-life balance.
Yes,
we're really big
balance.
on that on Right to the Source.
Yeah,
it's a lot about work-life balance. No, it's true. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, stop. Don't say yes to everything. Say no to some things. Yeah. Take some time for yourself. Enrich your life. Like, I still stick to that. If you're working and grinding all the time, what do you have to talk about? Eventually, you can just start writing about working and grinding all the time. Which, I mean, it's also a cool song too.
True, right? That.
But you can't do that every song, right? I love my time off. I treasure it. I don't know if that makes me lose the battle, whatever the hell. To me, I'm just running my race, so I don't really care what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Right. I focus on what I'm doing. And I try to live my life in day-type compartments, and it protects me from the baggage of something I can't control, which is yesterday, and it shields me it blinds me from something else I can't control, which is tomorrow, and I'm able to focus in today. And I always say I plan for the future, but I work in today. Yeah. And for me, work-life balance is part of that. Like, I shut down at a certain time. In the morning, I have a daily routine. On the weekends, I take time off from being creative. I go and do something fun. I live my life. I enjoy it. I've had my cousin passed away this year, and he was very young. And one of my best friends, Busby, passed away this year, and he was very young. And it puts it both in perspective. It's like, what are you really doing it all for? Like Busby was such an amazing family man, and such a great husband, and such a great father, and really understood work-life balance, but also worked his ass off and was building such an amazing empire. But for what? You know what I mean? Like, he's not here anymore. No. And so I think that, like, you have to really treasure those moments.
Evan, we got a couple storyophonic questions if we may ask you.
Okay, yeah.
If you had an alternate career, is there anything else that you could have done or would have done? Or
there was like a point in time when I was in, I want to say maybe junior high school, where I flirted with being an ESPN analyst. I love sports. I love sports.
I remember that.
But no, I mean, other than I was going to be in music. I was, for better or for worse, always going to be in music. But I love sports. Maybe I'll own a sports team one day.
There you go. You have written and collaborated with so many amazing artists. I mean, not the least of which is that young lady, Madonna. Is there a dream collaborator, somebody you'd like to work with whom you have not yet had the opportunity to work with?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. I mean, there's so many people that I still want to work with. There's bands, there's pop artists, and people that I've worked with that I'd love to work with again. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, I don't know. Coldplay would be tight. Black Keys, that would be cool. Dan Auerbach, just in general. Great. I mean, I think maybe even less of like the artists themselves, like creatives, like that, like writing with Dan or like Max Martin, Dave Cobb, Rick Rubin. These are all producers, but I don't know. Is that the same thing? That's the same thing, right? It counts, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Dan Campbell.
From your lips to God's ears, or something like that. Who do you consider your mentor in the business? Who'd you learn a lot from?
I've had different mentors over the years. Mm-hmm. My current mentor right now, which I'm so love that I've reconnected with him after all these years. There was a period of time that I wasn't close with him, but growing up, I had such an amazing relationship with him. Is like my godfather, this guy named Jeff Franklin, who actually started Casablanca Records with my dad. It was my dad's best friend. And the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a really close relationship, and he's been a really important part of my life right now. But I say like my first mentor ever was probably Tom Wally, you know, and kind of plucking me out of the mailroom at Interscope and showing me how to make a record. And that was like the first time I ever really felt like I was being mentored by anyone without even understanding what that was at the time. And so I think over the years, my mentors have changed depending on where I am in my career and where, you know, who's kind of taking me under their wing. I've never had like one traditional, like long arcing mentor, like some people have, like the whole, like my mentor of my career. I think maybe Jeff is now become that, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure you give advice to people. You work with young artists, you sign young artists. What do you tell them to listen to?
Listen to your mom. She's always right. Listen to the voice in your gut.
Yeah.
You know, I think you know when it's not right. I think so many people are so quick to just be done with a song or want to feel like they've accomplished something that they don't go that extra mile to make it great. And I think we all feel it here. That voice that says, like, the pre-chorus is not good, you know. And we try to like, no, shh, don't say that. Don't say that. Everybody else likes it, you know. But speak up, you know. And I think as far as like, if it's like a who to listen to as far as like an artist or thing or what to listen to, I mean, just the greats, you know. I think listen to everything. I think it's like a weird thing to say, like for musically, is go back and listen to all of the great music from every genre and every time ever and see what inspires you, and then let that inspire you to write something new, to take that and try to make a better version of it.
Evan, every time I see you, it's a joy. You have
Likewise,
so much love in your heart for music, and so
thanks,
much love in
man.
your heart
You
for
too.
people. Thank you, sir. We have love in our heart for you. Thanks for being our guest.
Oh, thanks for having me.
On Storyophonic.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care.
You've been listening to Storyophonic, a regular podcast series with tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. We come to you from Datalight Studios in Los Angeles, California. Our show is produced and edited by Lindsay Tomasic. Our production manager is Kim Strand, and our theme music is by Dusty Gray. Please rate us on your favorite podcast platform, catch up with our past episodes, and visit us often for new shows. I'm your host, Dan Kimpel.